pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I've been battling the government for about 13 years now because my house was burglarized by drug addicts who were selling stolen cars on the street with permission of the police, and I wouldn't stand for their incompetence and took them on. Well, when you take them on, you got to take on all the government because they're all tied in together. And I've had retired cops, active cops, politicians, and active and non-active all tell me, watch out you don't get shot. You know, be careful out there. You know, you're liable to get shot. Well, lo and behold, had a Maryland State Police threaten to shoot me. The state's attorney says it's not against the law. But anyway, that's that. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But had something up in Ellicott City. That's on the west side of Baltimore City in Howard County. The Green Party needs signatures. I think they need 10,000 to be on the ballot in 2012. And fella's up at the library, and his job is to get these signatures. Well, the rule at the library is in the law that you got to be 20 feet from the door. You can't solicit unless you're 20 feet away from the door. And the Girl Scouts are there, the Boy Scouts come up, and all different kind of organizations. Well, this fella's there from the Green Party, and he's more than 20 foot from the door. But the people at the library, they want him further away. And he says, no, I'm within the law, I'm not moving. I got the right to be here. So they call the Howard County Police, and a sergeant comes up and tells him to move. He says, I'm not moving, I got the legal right to be here. So the sergeant says, you're going to move. And he said, no, I'm not. Well, if you don't move, you're under arrest. So the fellow says, well, you mind if I take my cell phone and video you ordered me out of here and arresting me? And with that, they pepper sprayed a man and lock him up. Can you believe this? Pepper sprayed a man and lock him up when he's not violating the law. This is just unbelievable. And they charging him with charges that would be 3.5 years in jail or a $6,000 fine or both. And the guy did nothing wrong. And this happens all the time, all over the country. And who do you go to for help? You go to the police? They investigate themselves. You go to the state's attorneys? They're tied in with the police. Go to the courts? They're tied in. You know, we got to get justice back in this country, and your first line of defense for your constitutional rights is you. You. Your second line of defense is the police, and they've dropped the ball. Now, these signatures that this man's getting in Maryland, they're real tough. Over in Queen Anne's County, where I live, some woman was trying to get on a ballot. She needed the signatures. And say your name is John Q. Public. So instead of, you know, if you write J.Q. Public, that don't count. So that this one woman had all these signatures to be on the ballot because they didn't dot I's and put commas in the right place or use initials instead of their middle name or didn't put junior on the end. They threw all those signatures out. It's just unbelievable what happens. And who do you go to for help? Let me tell you a true story here. I ran for sheriff in Queen Anne's County because of the corruption. And I know I didn't have much a chance to win. I'm Pete Richter. Pete Richter's like the Lone Ranger. I ride alone. And it's tough to get support when you stand up against the authority because people don't want to stand with you. You know, they see that you're willing to fight. And I guess when you get to the point where you're winning, they'll all want to jump on your team. But when you're struggling, it's tough to get people behind you. And I know this. But I ran for sheriff so I could voice my concerns against the government, and it gave me a bully pulpit to be, these different places debating the other guys running for sheriff. But this is how this went down. You're not going to believe this. About a year before the election, I went up to Centerville to the Board of Elections with my wife, and we go in to sign up to run for sheriff. So I said to the fellow in there, I don't want to be a Republican. I don't want to be a Democrat. I'm fed up with all these Republicans and Democrats. I'm an American. I just want to run for sheriff as Pete Richter. How many signatures do I need? The guy says, you don't need any signatures. I said, man, this is great. Okay, we fill out all the paperwork and all. So I think it was like in May, the newspaper prints a article, Bay Times down where I live. They print an article on the candidates running for office. Well, lo and behold, Pete Richter's name is not in the newspaper as a candidate. So I had other information, kind of like indicating that I'm not on a ballot. I went up to a church up on a road called Spaniard's Neck up above Centerville. And a fellow I know, a Christian fellow, sees me come in. He says, you got your guitar? I said, yeah. He said, get up and do some gospel songs for us. I said, okay. So he said, you should have been here the other night. This place was packed. It's like a carnival they're having. I said, why? He said, well, all the politicians got up and got to talk and, get some votes. I said, well, why didn't you tell me? He says, well, your name's not on the ballot. So I thought it was just hanky-panky, just trying to keep me out of the limelight. So when I hit the newspaper, I know something's wrong, and I called the newspaper. How come I'm not on the ballot? Or my name's not in the newspaper as being on the ballot? They said, well, you're not on the ballot. So I called Centerville to the Board of Elections, and they said, oh, yeah, you're on the ballot. Well, I know somebody's lying, so more than likely it's the government. So I go up to Centerville, and I say, am I on the ballot? They said, yeah. I said, show me the paperwork proving that I'm on the ballot. So they walk away and they come back. They said, oh, there's a mistake here. You got to get the Independent Party of Maryland to endorse you or get these signatures. Well, by now, it'd be a big job for just me and my wife to go out and get all these signatures. So I says, well, what do I have to do, join the Independent Party? They said, yeah, you got to join the Independent Party of Maryland. So I let my fingers do the walking. I get to the yellow pages and I start making calls, and lo and behold, there is no Independent Party in Maryland. There is none. Well, while I'm looking for this Independent Party that doesn't exist, I stumble into the Constitution Party of Maryland. So I get on the phone with a fellow. I'm on there about 30 seconds. He said, we've been looking for a guy like you. We'll endorse you. We want you to run under the Constitution Party. I said, no problem. So the next thing that happens, they already tried to keep me off the ballot, okay, once. Now, I think it was July the 6th was the last day to be registered to run for sheriff. Last day. And the Constitution Party calls me up and they said, you're not on the ballot. We're going to call Centerville. I said, good. Call me back. Well, anyway, the fellow from the Constitution Party calls Centerville and says, how come Pete Richter is not on the ballot? And they said, well, he didn't fill out the paperwork. And they said, you're right. We filled it out for him, and we sent it to you by registered mail. The Board of Elections says, hang on a minute. They go in the back room. They come out, and they said, yep, you're right. You're right. 5 minutes later, I'm on the ballot, supposedly. So the fellow from the Constitution Party calls me back. He says, listen, the next step is all this paperwork's got to go over to Annapolis. So call over Annapolis or go over to Annapolis and make sure that they sent the paperwork over to Annapolis. I said, okay. So a couple days later, I go over to Annapolis, and guess what? I don't even have to tell you, do I? They didn't send the paperwork over. So the girl at the Board of Elections, I guess it's the main one in Annapolis, calls Centerville, and they put me on the ballot. So I know what this guy from the Green Party's going through out here trying to get signatures, and the system's against you. The system is against you. The Republicans and the Democrats don't want Constitution Party, the Green Party, or any other kind of party, because they're in control. And I'm not saying that all Democrats or Republicans are bad guys, but look at the country. We're in bad shape, and it's a shame that it's that way. And with this fellow from the Green Party at the library, the ACLU got involved with him. They said, he's free speech. It's not violating the law. And it's not against the law to be belligerent or confrontational. But not according to the police. They lock him up anyway. So now the guy's got to get a lawyer. Don't have a whole lot of money. He's got to fight the system. And it's a shame that it's that way, but it seems like it's always that way. But let me sing a song about a good American. And this American here, if you don't, you should know who this guy is. Call him drunken Ira Hayes, he won't answer anymore. Not the whiskey drinking Indian or the Marine that went to war. Gather round me, people, and a story I will tell about a brave young Indian that you should remember well. From the land of the Pima Indian, a proud and noble band who farmed the Phoenix Valley in Arizona land. Down the ditches 1,000 years, the sparkling waters rushed till the white man stole their water rights and the sparkling waters hushed. Now Ira's folks were hungry, their crops grew crops of weeds, but when war came, Ira volunteered, forgot the white man's greed. Call him drunken Ira Hayes, he won't answer anymore. Not the whiskey drinking Indian or the Marine that went to war. They're at the battle of Iwo Jima Hill, 250 men, but only 27 lived to walk back down again. And when the fight was over and Old Glory raised, among the men holding high the Indian Ira Hayes. Ira Hayes returned a hero, celebrated through the land. He was wine and speech and honor, and everybody shook his hand. But he was just a Pima Indian, no water, no home, no chance. At home nobody cared what Ira done, and when do the Indians dance? Well, Ira started drinking hard, jail was often his home. They let him raise a flag of glory like they throw a dog a bone. Well, he died drunk early one morning, alone in the land that he fought to save. 2 inches of water, a lonely ditch, was a grave for Ira Hayes. Yeah, call him drunken Ira Hayes, but his land is still as dry, and his ghost is lying thirsty in the ditch where Ira died. Call him drunken Ira Hayes, he won't answer anymore. Not the whiskey drinking Indian or the Marine that went to war. Ira Hayes, a hero. And we still got a lot of good heroes in this country, and it's time for him to come up to the plate. Let's take his country back. We got to stand up for our rights. And if the police are wrong, the judges, politicians, anybody's wrong, we need to stand up as citizens and tell them that the Constitution's the law. End the story. We'll be back. Pete Richter coming back to you again, the old retired cop from Baltimore. And if you're from Baltimore, you say Baltimore. But if you're somewhere else in the United States, it's Baltimore. But I'm from Baltimore. And I'm up here at Liberty Works Radio Network. And the telephone number up here in Westminster at the studio is 410-848-9191. 410-848-9191. And if you call, you'll talk to the engineer here, Miss Jane Doe. She don't give her name to the police, the IRS, the military, nobody. Jane Doe is her name. End of story. Don't try to get her name because she's not going to tell you it's Jane Doe, and that's her right to be Jane Doe if she wants to be Jane Doe. But she'll be not real nice to you on the phone. She's a sweetheart. Anyway, let me talk a little bit about policing here. we just had a big shooting in Baltimore City. Got a dead policeman, a dead civilian, and another cop with a bullet in his foot. And this is what the newspaper had. Packer Street, that's downtown Baltimore. And there's a nightclub. So people, you know, have nightclub time to leave, they're all outside. And an undercover, I guess he was undercover, but he was in plain clothes, and he was supposedly working. This plainclothes police officer gets in an argument with a 22-year-old fellow who is a decent citizen, never been arrested, high school football star, plays semi-pro. He's got a child and a fiancée, he's ready to get married, but he's never been in trouble. And somehow this plainclothes policeman and this fellow get in some kind of argument, and the plainclothes policeman shoots and kills him. Well, while he's shooting and killing this civilian, the troops show up. So it's like I'm pretty sure it was 4 uniformed cops show up, and they see this fellow in plain clothes, and they don't know he's the cop, shooting. So they shoot 41 bullets. The police shoot 41 bullets and kill the undercover policeman. He had over 20 bullets in his dead body. Over 20 bullets shot into this man's body. Unbelievable. How can this happen? And the old-timers like me will tell you it all started right after the riots in 1968. The law enforcement in the whole country started going downhill, and they mentioned another name in this article over the shooting, but 41 shots fired. The mayor and the people don't trust the police anymore. They want to bring in the feds to do an investigation so there's no cover-up. The family of the dead civilian, they're besides themselves, and they're forming demonstrations, and this is national news, I'm pretty sure by now. And like I say, 1 police officer shot dead, a civilian shot dead, 1 cop shot in the foot, and 41 bullets flying through the air up there on Packer Street. Unbelievable. The newspaper article mentions a fellow named Norman Stamp. Norman Stamp was a police officer, and I went on in 65, and I think Norman went on like 64. I was in the Eastern District. Norman was in the Central, and we butted on at Asquith Street at North Avenue. And there was a call box up there, and we'd run into each other from time to time at the call box. And for all you whippersnappers out there, a call box was a metal box with a telephone in it. And that was our communication, a call box. And no walkie-talkies, no bulletproof vests, none of that. You had a call box. So if you locked somebody up, you walked him to the call box, just you and him. So it's not like today where you see it on television, 30 police beating one guy up. We hauled them away by ourselves. Well, anyway, in the early 70s, I went down to the traffic division and got on motorcycles. We rode Harleys, not these Japanese bikes that they're riding today, but we rode Harleys. And Norman was already there when I got there, and Norman Stamp was a nice guy. Norman loved being a police. He, you know, the guy that lives in the neighborhood that's ex-military, still has the haircut, spit shines his shoes, puts the flag up every morning, takes it down at night, knows how to fold it, and walks like he's at attention. Well, Norman was like that as a police. He had all the stuff at his house, you know, he'd collect police things, and he liked being a police. And at the time I'm talking about, he's the oldest guy in the police department with 45 years on the job. Well, Norman, a couple other police, and a couple lawyers started a club up called the Chosen Sons. And in the beginning, it was just all police and firemen and lawyers and state's attorneys and stuff in this motorcycle club. And then later on, it expanded. Well, anyway, Norman is celebrating his birthday and 45 years on the police department. And the motorcycle club goes to a place called the Haven Lounge. It's off of Route 40 on Haven Street. It's a go-go joint. and bar, restaurant, and the go-go girls, and there's a commotion outside. So word gets in the bar that there's a commotion outside, and a couple of you got retired off-duty cops are in this club, right? So a couple of them said, "We'll take care of it." Norman said, "Let me go out. I'll handle it. Everybody stay in the bar." Well, Norman comes out the side door, and you got to come down like 5 or 6 steps. Well, as he's coming down the steps, the police show up. And there's a carload of cops, like 3 of them in the car, and their job at night is to get curfew violators, kids that are out after 10 o'clock at night, and lock them up. Well, anyway, Norman's coming down the steps, and the police say that Norman had brass knuckles in his hand. Well, if he's got brass knuckles in his hand, he can't punch unless he gets close enough to you. As he's halfway down the steps, they stun gun Norman. Norman falls down the steps on the ground, carried his police revolver in his belt in the back. And a lot of cops will do that. They'll put that gun in the belt in the back. That way you got a shirt on. Nobody knows you got the gun when you're off duty. Well, the gun falls out of his belt. And Norman, while he's stun gunned, sees his gun falling out on the sidewalk. Well, you're trained, man. If the bad guy gets your stun gun, don't let him get that gun. Get the real gun, because he'll kill you. So Norman reaches for his pistol, and had a little technical difficulty there. But anyway, Norman reaches for his gun, and the police shoot and kill him. Shoot and kill Norman. Norman was one of the best guys you ever want to meet, no problem whatsoever. And as soon as his heart stopped beating, he's the enemy of the police department. They just made Norman look bad. And when this shooting went down with the 41 shots, who are they going to blame this on? They're going to try to blame it on the civilian, that it was his fault, or the dead policeman, because they can't be wrong. Now, I wasn't there. I don't really. All I know is what I read in the newspaper. But you can't have these cops out here shooting like they're doing it, like they're going crazy with this stuff. And it's not just in Baltimore; it's everywhere you look. Last week I talked about this YouTube. Get on this YouTube, people. Get on this YouTube and look at these police going crazy out here. I mean, you wouldn't believe what you see on this YouTube. Pushing old ladies around, screaming at kids. They had one in Baltimore City down at Inner Harbor. Some kids on a skateboard, and the police comes up screaming and yelling at this kid, and it's all on video. "I'm Officer so-and-so, and you better respect me," and like a total jerk. And, would he do that with the Hells Angels? I don't know. Them guys, Hells Angels, allowed to punch him in his mouth, but he's got a little kid there screaming at him. And it makes the good police look bad. Most of the cops out there are decent guys. They want to do a good job, but they lack a lot of times in leadership. I know that. Well, anyway, I got a request to do a song. And let me get my flat top guitar here. And this request came from my buddy Mo down there in Florida. Denellen he lives. He's in one of them gated, he's retired from the government. So, he's got that big pension and all. So he's down there in one of them gated communities where all the people ride around in golf carts, drinking highballs and smoking cigarettes and stuff. But he says, if you got a chance, sing this song. Well, I didn't have a chance last week, so I'm going to try it this week. Well, I woke up Sunday morning with no way to hold my head that didn't hurt. And the beer I had for breakfast wasn't bad, so I had one more for dessert. Then I fumbled through my closet of my clothes and found my cleanest dirty shirt. I washed my face, I combed my hair, headed down the stairs to meet the day. On a Sunday morning sidewalk, wishing, Lord, I was stoned, 'cause there's something in a Sunday makes a body feel alone. And there's nothing short of dying half as lonesome as the sound of the sleepy city sidewalk. Sunday morning coming down. Well, I spoke my mind the night before, the cigarettes and songs I was singing. And I lit my first to watch the small kid cussing at a can he was kicking. Then I headed across the street and caught the Sunday smell of someone's frying chicken. It took me back to something, a horse somewhere, somehow along the way. On a Sunday morning sidewalk, wishing, Lord, that I was stoned. 'Cause there's something in a Sunday makes a body feel alone. And there's nothing short of dying half as lonesome as the sound as the sleepy city sidewalk. Sunday morning coming down. In the park I saw a daddy with a laughing little girl he was swinging. And I stopped beside a Sunday school to listen to the songs they were singing. Then I headed back for home, and somewhere far away a lonely bell was ringing. It echoed through the canyons like a disappearing dream of yesterday. On a Sunday morning sidewalk, wishing, Lord, that I was stoned. 'Cause there's something in a Sunday makes a body feel alone. And there's nothing short of dying half as lonesome as the sound of a sleepy city sidewalk. A Sunday morning coming down. A lot of people think you in the city, you got a lot of friends, but there's nothing lonelier than being anywhere where you don't know anybody. And the big city's no different than a little town. You get in that big city and you're invisible. You're invisible. I've seen on television in New York, a guy drops dead on the sidewalk. They just walk right over him. But imagine being in a town where you don't know anybody and it's Sunday and you're all alone, and especially if you're homeless. What do? You walk around, you look for friendly people. And this guy in that song, he smells that fried chicken. Probably took him back to when he was a kid and his mother would fry chicken on Sunday. And when I was a kid, we had spaghetti on Wednesdays and fried chicken on Sundays. And stay tuned and give us a call up here at LibertyWorksRadioNetwork.com. Pete Richter coming back to you again here, the old retired cop from Baltimore. Not Baltimore, but Baltimore. And get a pencil. I want you to write something down. This is what I want you to write down. FlexYourRights.org. FlexYourRights.org. And a fellow named Billy Murphy has DVDs out on how to protect yourself from the police. And who's Billy Murphy? Well, he was a trial lawyer. He's still a trial lawyer. He's been a judge along the way, and I knew his father. His father was a judge in Baltimore City back in the 60s when I went on in the 70s. And Billy Murphy picked up the baton from his father and carries it. And he takes on them cases where, you're not, where you got the government coming after you or the police doing the wrong thing. And Billy... He's a talker. I tell you what, you want this guy on your side if you need help. But anyway, let me talk a little bit about. I keep talking about the old days in the police department. Let me tell you how it was when I went on 65. You went to the police academy and you didn't learn a whole lot because usually the guys in the police academy don't want to be on the street. And that's why they go to the police academy. Not all the time. We had a lieutenant up there named Urban that taught law. And this guy knew the law inside and out. And he'd drum us, what the law is into your head. But anyway, while you're in the academy in those days, after you had so much time in the academy, but you're still not, police, but you got your gun. They gave you the gun and the badge, but you're not sworn in yet, really. They'd send you out to a district, and you'd be in a suit and tie, and you'd ride around in a radio car, or walk a foot post with the police. And first guy that I walked with was old Ed Mazuski. And them old police, they was like scared of you when you was new. They thought you might have been a spy or what. And, they don't want to do nothing wrong because they'll think you're going to tell them. Well, Ed Mazuski, and, I meet him out on the street, and, we introduce ourselves, and then we start walking. And walking. And walking. And walking. But I was used to walking. I come from the factory. I worked at Black & Decker. I was on my feet all night. I walked this old man's legs off of him at night. But you wind up learning from these old guys. And once you hit the district, and I went into the Eastern District, that's where Ed Mazuski was, and this is how it was. They'd give you a post that you didn't work. And the district was divided into bailiwicks, and the bailiwick had a sergeant, and the district had a lieutenant, and the bailiwick had foot posts, one radio car, and then you had the wagon, which worked the whole district. So they always try to put the new guy on a loan out post. That means that's not the hot post. You're going to work everybody else's post. Well, while you're working everybody else's post, you learn every nook and cranny of the whole district, because they loan you out of your bailiwick to another bailiwick, and you wound up working just about every post in that district, and you worked with every policeman in that district, and you worked in the radio car, every radio car, and you got to work with all the men in the radio car. And in those days, a guy in a radio car had 10 years on the job. He didn't come out of the police academy and go right at a radio car. Radio car was a good job. That's where all the action was. You didn't get cold in the winter. You didn't get, well, you got hot in the summertime because we didn't have air conditioning. But you were mobile, you could move around, and guys liked working in them radio cars. So you'd be the new guy, and they'd put you in a radio car. They wouldn't let you drive it. No way. It was tough getting a driver's license on the police department. And I had about a year on, and went out and took the test and got a driver's license, which was almost unheard of in those days, to get a driver's license with only a year on. And I can remember the first time they let me drive a police car, the sergeant was petrified. He didn't want to get a scratch on the radio car. It could be a big, long speech on how to drive. But anyway, when you worked that radio car, you handled all the calls. You wouldn't drive. So the guy riding shotgun wrote all the reports. And you're sitting there with a guy with a minimum of 10 years on that's been around. And he'll show you how to write a report. He'll let you write it and mess it up. Then he says, look, do it this way. Who, what, when, where, and how. That's what you got to get on them reports. And you learn how to write a report. And you learn how these guys operated. When you got in that radio car, they knew everybody in that bailiwick they were working. They knew every store owner. They knew the principal of the school, all the teachers. They knew who was going to work 4 o'clock in the morning. Who beat his wife. They knew all this stuff, and you'd learn it from them. And I don't care how bad the neighborhood was, how dirty, stinking the house was. When they got a call, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, can we help you? Now, you want to break bad, they'll put you in the hospital, but you're going to throw the first punch. And they knew how to handle things, and you really learned a lot. And when the people on the street seen you with them older guys, and they liked that older guy, well, they'd warm up to you, too. And we had a turnkey in them days named Joe Wise. Joe Wise was probably 65 when I'm 21. And when he was on the street, now Turnkey's the guy, we had, the lockup was at the district. We locked you up on the street and we hauled you to the station house. We had jail cells in there, and the turnkey took care of the prisoners. And they saved that job for the older guys. Well, Joe Wise is about 65. He's the turnkey. And what a great guy Joe Wise was. And he worked around Igor Street and Broadway. If you're familiar with Baltimore, that's right above Hopkins Hospital up there in the ghetto. Well, Sunday would come, and Joe'd be working as a turnkey. And, you know, you'd be in a radio car or a wagon, and you'd wind up at the station house, and you'd see these old black ladies in there all dressed up. They just came from church. And they'd come in to see Joe Wise. Why? Because they would tell Joe Wise who the burglars are in that neighborhood, who's doing what, who's doing something illegal, who's pushing the drugs. Because they know Joe Wise forever. He worked that post down there forever, and they knew that they could trust him, and they'd come in that station house, and they'd tell Joe Wise what was going on, and he knew how to get the information to the guys on the street that would take care of business. And, you know, I'm not saying all the cops in them days were wonderful, goody two-shoe guys, but they were police. And that's what we need on the street today, is we need police out there. See, in Baltimore, if you get the label, if one cop knows that you're a good cop, he'll say, he's a good police. Not police, but police. And that was like a badge of honor when the other guys would say, man, he's a good police. And anyway, let me get back to this Billy Murphy here. FlexYourRights.org. Billy Murphy, look that up. And what he talks about is what I talk about, how to protect yourself from the bad cop. The police are your line of defense for your constitutional rights. They should look out for the citizens. They work for the citizens, not the politicians, not the judges, not the state's attorneys. They work for us. They should be out there protecting us. People shouldn't be afraid of the police. And it all depends on where you live, how old you are, what you're driving, you know, to determine how you're going to deal with the police. And if you're a young person, especially in this Queen Anne's County where I live, there's not a whole lot of crime, so the cops want to be Rambo, and there's no place to be Rambo, so they pick on kids. And in other places, if you're in a black neighborhood and you're white, they're going to pick on you, and vice versa. They're like looking for stuff. Where we were told in my day is, if there ain't nothing to do, don't do nothing. If there's something to do, do it, and do it right. But if there's nothing to do, don't do nothing. And that's the way we policed. And let me go over this one more time for you, because I know you people out there, if you're not young, you got children, grandchildren. When you're pulled over by the police, and he puts that blue light on, if he walks up to your car and says, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, may I see your license and registration cards, please? I stopped you for doing 50 and a 35. You got a good police. When he comes up and says, you know why I stopped you? You got a problem. Because no matter what you say, he's going to turn that into something bad. For example, if he says, do you know why I stopped you? And you say to him, you think I got donuts in that bag, you're in trouble. Well, you can say that if you want. You can say anything you want to the police. But he shouldn't be up there questioning you unless you did something wrong. And this course that Billy Murphy puts out really, goes into it and says it a lot better than me. The guy's a lawyer. But if you're being pulled over, especially if you're a girl, pull to a well-lit neighborhood. Don't pull over underneath a bridge or, where it's real dark with no lights. Put your four-way flashes on so that he knows that you know he's back there, and drive to a safe place. You've got people running around that impersonate police. They're just looking for girls out there to get a hold of. You don't want that to happen to anybody in your family. But if you pull over on a 7-Eleven lot, they might have a video camera out there. So if you get one of these screwballs starts beating you up or searching your car illegally, you might have it on film. But the best thing to do is carry a video camera with you at all times. And don't give the police a hard time, yes sir, no sir, and answer him if you can with a question. But be polite. Do you know why I stopped you? I'm sure you're going to tell me, sir. Do you know what you were doing? No, sir, I don't. Are you going to tell me? And one of the things you have to remember is, if they start pushing you around, telling you to do this, telling you to do that, you say, am I free to go, or are you detaining me? And that might stop him right in his tracks. And never, ever submit to a search. Never. Never give them permission to search you, your car, your house, or anything, because you got seed planters out there. And all the cops know what a seed planter is. He's the guy that's got the seed. He finds it in your floor mat. Okay? He's not going to lock you up, but he's going to use that seed to search your car, and you don't want that to happen. You're protected by the Constitution for unreasonable searches and seizures. And the police have to start obeying the law like everybody else. And the Constitution is the law. End of story. End of story. You got to have the law enforced with justice. And anyway, let's go out with a good old gospel song that everybody knows. And don't forget now, we're up at LibertyWorksRadioNetwork.com. And the number's 410-848-9191. And this song goes like this. Some glad morning when this life is over, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. Well, I'll fly away. I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, bye bye. I'll fly away. When the shadows of his life are gone, I'll fly away. Like a bird from prison bars flown, I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Just a few more weary days and then I'll fly away to a home where joy shall never end. I'll fly away. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.